Good morning and welcome to the CoMoUK Annual General Meeting. I'm Matthew Clark, the Chair of CoMoUK, and I'm going to be talking you through the agenda in a moment. Just waiting for a couple of people to come in through the waiting room, and then we'll begin. Great. I think that we are all here, and I understand that we are quorate, which means that we can start the AGM. So thank you very much all for joining. Today, we're going to go through this agenda. We're going to start off reminding people of how you can be a member of CoMoUK. We're then going to go through the process of approving the 2022 AGM minutes from last time. We then have a vote on trustee positions of people who've become trustees over the year or are voting people in on trustee positions. We'll then go to Martin Hill to talk through the Treasurer's report for the last year, and there'll be a vote on the reappointment of our auditors. And then I will take you through the Chair's report, which will talk about the activity of CoMoUK over the past year. So, to begin, when we go through voting process, those people who are joining who are members of CoMoUK will be able to vote, and those are people in these following categories. So those are accredited operator members, so members of shared mobility organisations, and that will be one vote per organisation. Associate members, so those are people who are members as an associate who aren't operators. And then those who have CoMoUK £1 friend membership. If you're not a member and you want to join for the future, then you can contact us on the email address there. So as we go through the voting process, what I'm going to ask you to do for each vote is I'm going to ask for people for the vote, and I'm going to ask for people to raise their hands. In Zoom, for those of you who are less familiar with Zoom, there's a reactions button probably at the bottom of your screen, and there's a hands raise. So I'll ask for people for, and we'll see the hands there. We've got Jill and Antonio in the background counting up those votes. I'll then ask you to put your hands down, and then we'll do a vote against. So a reminder, only those people who are members in these three categories will be able to vote. Thank you. Okay, so the minutes from the 2022 AGM were shared on the invite to this meeting, and you can see a summary of those there. I don't think there was anything too contentious in the previous AGM minutes, so I would like to take a vote from members if we're okay to accept the minutes from the 2022 AGM. So please raise your hand if you're willing to accept. Give a moment for those votes to come through. Okay, we have 11 people who have voted for that. Just pausing to make sure that we've got that vote. If you can drop the hands. Okay, just going to drop all those hands. That's great. And then anyone who doesn't want to accept the minutes from the 2022 AGM, you can raise your hand now, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to the next vote. So this is to elect trustees, and these are people who have been co-opted to the board in the last 12 months. So we'd like to confirm that we'd like to accept these people. I will go through them individually, so apologies for the time that will take, but first three of these are operator representatives. Just to explain the process, we have an operator representative for each of the three categories, car clubs, which is the first category. Then we have shared micromobility, and then we have digital demand responsive transport. Those individuals put themselves forward and then were voted by the organisations that are accredited members of those categories or those who are involved in the sector. So I'd like to take votes for Eleanor from Hirecar, if we can have votes for accepting her on the board. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got 9, 10 we have there, 12. Thank you very much. If I can ask you to put your hands down, that's great. I think actually we're getting Antonio to drop hands, so you don't need to drop them. Anyone who's against having Eleanor from Highcar on the board, raise your hand. Thank you. Next is voting for Hal from Lyme to join as the shared micromobility operator. If we can have a raise of hands for those people who are for Hal. Okay, we have 13 people there. Antonio, if you can drop the hands, that's great. Anyone who's against having Hal from Lyme on the board? Okay, thank you. And then Jack from Padam as the digital demand responsive representative. Votes for, please. Okay, great. We've got 10 there. And any votes against Jack joining the board? Okay, we don't have any votes against for any of those categories. Thank you. And lastly, we also have other board members who are not operators, and this year we are fortunate enough to have Leon Daniels to join the board. Leon's currently an independent consultant with lots of history in the sector. So votes for Leon, please. Okay, I have 13 for. Thank you very much for that. And anyone who voting against Leon joining the board? Okay, thank you. So I'd like to formally
thank you very much.
Formally welcome those individuals formally to the board, and thank you very much for putting yourself forward. Okay, so then we have a final election regarding trustees. This one is to re-elect individuals who are currently on the board for a further term. And that includes myself, Matthew Clark from Steer, Martin Hill, who is an independent consultant, and also the treasurer. So I'm the chair, and then we also this year have Kate Gifford from West Yorkshire Combined Authority, who is the vice chair. So I'm just going to step through these, and if you can have a raise of hands for, and then any against. So first of all, it's myself, Matthew Clark from Steer. If you can raise hands for reappointing. Okay, thank you. That's 14. Any hands against the re-election of myself? Okay, thank you very much. Then can we have hands for Martin Hill being re-elected to the board? Okay, thank you. We've got 14 votes for. Thank you very much. Any votes against Martin? Okay, that's great. And the final one, Kate Gifford to be re-elected to the board. Votes for, please. Okay, thank you. We have 14 for. Finally, any against Kate being re-elected to the board? Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes those votes. I'm now going to pass over to Martin, who's going to talk through the Treasury report and some accounts for the last financial year. Thank you, Martin.
Great, thanks very much, Richard. If you can just go straight to that next slide. So we had another good year for 22-23 for CoMo. As you can see, the income rose slightly but was level. Our expenditure increased, and again that was a very a specific choice. We actually closed the year with a 11 headcount, which is an increase of 3 over the previous year, and that was to look at other opportunities and fundraising, and this meant that again our reserves stayed pretty much level. And they're probably at this level a little bit too high. That's giving us about sort of a 6 months cover, where the Charity Commission guidelines sort of is for 3. So again, another reason why we looked to expand the sort of staff footprint and activities of CoMo in that year. Next slide, please. Thanks. So then this gives us a bit more colour of the income. What is perhaps glaring is that there's sort of 66%, 2/3 of our income coming from a single grant, that being Transport Scotland. The percentage was sort of the actual amount didn't change so much, but the percent of its importance did. The grants from the EU went down. Again, they were sort of really sort of wrapping up. It's in some ways it's been astonishing how they've held up so well. And the membership accreditation and consultancy and the conference were pretty much level over that period. Next slide, please. So the thing to see is that, and this is we sort of really added on to talk about what's happened and since the close of last year's accounts. And well, you know, the key thing to see is that we had the Transport Scotland grant end. It actually ended and they funded us through into June. We then had to look at some redundancies and some natural wastage of staff. So we reduced the size of the organisation. And we started having monthly reviews with the board to look at how the sort of process and progress was going in our reactions to that. In actual fact, there's been great pickup from particularly the Smarter Choices, Smarter Places grant, and also a dramatic increase in consultancy. So again, the sort of teams really have shown great flexibility in working to find other income and other sources. And those high reserves are coming very useful. So we expect the reserves to be drawn on and to drop significantly, again, not below Charity Commission levels, but we will be drawing on them over this year, and you'll see that in next year's accounts. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Matt. There you go. Great, thanks. So the release is where I'd like to get some to do the votes, really. So we've had our accounts prepared by Assets UK. They're actually renamed and been taken over the Naylor Winters Gill, so it's actually the same accountants, just rebranded. So I would like to ask for a proposal to accept the 22-23 accounts. If you could raise your hands if you want to accept them. Great, thanks very much. That's 13. And if anybody wants to vote against the acceptance, thank you. And if I could ask for you to vote to reappoint Assets as our auditors. That's great. That's 12. Thanks very much. And anybody who doesn't want to reappoint Assets, if any vote against. Excellent. Thank you. That sort of concludes the Treasurer's report. Back to you.
Thank you, Martin. So now it's time for me to give a summary of the CoMo UK's activities for the last financial year, and then also an update on where we are in the time that's passed since then. So worth first of all just recapping on CoMo UK's roles. And there are kind of 6 areas that CoMo UK focuses on. The first of these is advice and support across the sector, typically supporting the public sector to understand the opportunities and benefits of shared mobility. The second of these is sharing knowledge. The third is events, which kind of encompasses both the first two categories. The fourth is research. This includes the long-standing research on car clubs, bike share, and additionally this year, e-scooters and digital demand-responsive transport. The fifth area is influencing policy, so making sure that people are aware of the benefits of shared transport, and that's included in relevant policies. And the sixth is setting standards across the industry. So I'm just going to run through the activities that we've been undertaking. So the first is in terms of one-to-one advice. So in the last financial year, CoMoUK have provided one-to-one advice on a range of community schemes, and this has included a micro grants program, advice on the built environment, how shared mobility can link better with rail, and general advice on shared mobility. As Martin noted, this program and the funding associated with this ended in June of this year. In terms of other one-to-one support, so we've been providing support for authorities across England and Wales, and also consultancy projects for local authorities, often working with other partners to deliver those. It's worth noting that there have been some recent opportunities in Ireland, and CoMoUK is looking to secure additional work in Ireland going forward in the next financial year. In terms of new guidance documents, there's been a range of documents that have been developed over the last financial year. The first of these is considering and supporting the rollout of electric vehicles within car club networks. The second of these is support for and advice on how best to integrate shared transport within new developments, so advice for property developers and local authorities in that area. And then the third area is the growing topic of mobility hubs, and this is work on a design guide, so those next steps, taking mobility hubs from feasibility through to reality. Additional guidance documents have looked at the integration of rail and shared transport, updated car club guidance for local authorities, and then also case studies for how shared transport can be integrated and can support the National Health Service. So it is unfortunate that due to the funding situation in Scotland, a lot of organisations in the transport sector have had their funding cut, and this is the type of work that we were doing in Scotland until that funding programme was cut down. So we've been developing a knowledge centre. We've been doing some interesting research with non-users, looking at how the users of shared transport could grow across Scotland. We've developed a travel better tool, which is a tool to help people to understand how shared transport could fit into their lives and the benefits it could bring. Mentioned before, we've been involved in community grants. This has included also work on podcasts and videos, and some work looking at the different business models of how you could implement shared transport. We've also been involved in public-facing engagement, so the Shared Transport for All project. These are also in Scotland, these projects, also supporting people in the new low emission zones in key cities in Scotland. And for the first time, we've been involved in a social media influencing campaign. I think the first time that CoMo have got involved in that particular area. More widely, CoMo continues a range of knowledge sharing events, and you can see on here the themes that these knowledge sharing events cover. and also the frequency. So we have a series of events which are for local authorities only, providing a safe space to ask questions and learn from other people. We then have a series of webinars, which is a slightly wider audience, and then occasional or quarterly open events where other people are brought together. As you can see, the Scotland quarterly events are no longer funded, so those will no longer be happening, unfortunately. We had a number of successful events over the past financial year, including the Shared Transport Roadshow, an in-person event in June. This was in Salford in Greater Manchester, and brought people together and a great opportunity not just to try things out, but also sort of networking and understanding different forms of shared transport on the ground. So we're very pleased to be able to do that with at the University of Salford. Hopefully many of you will have joined the Shared Transport Conference, just happened earlier in the month. This was online this year, focused on a single day. We had around 500 registrations, and each of the sessions had around 100 people. We were able to bring in 25 speakers from the UK and also internationally. So I think that was well received. In terms of the research programme, those of you who have followed CoMoUK and are involved will be aware of the annual car club and bike share reports, which continue each year to demonstrate both the scale of the industry, but also the benefits that can be brought. We've added to that with a new e-scooter report looking at the shared e-scooter implementations across the UK, and also work looking at demand responsive transport. All these are available on our website. Then in terms of influencing policy towards shared transport, we've worked with the Committee on Climate Change. We've been successful in supporting car clubs within the electric vehicle funding from DFT and various acronyms, Levi and AUX, for those of you familiar with those acronyms. We worked to have a debate in the House of Parliament. It's technically called an adjournment debate, but with the subject of shared transport, which is helpful. Ongoing work trying to influence and encourage the inclusion of e-scooters within the transport bill. This has been through many iterations and is ongoing source of frustration. Work with TfL looking at car clubs and bike share and how the regulation and management of those might change in the future, and then wider work across Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland on transport policy. CoMoUK accredits car clubs and bike share, and we have 7 car clubs which are accredited members and 8 bike share operators currently accredited members. We also have added a new community and mobility hub accreditation, recognising that when implementing mobility hubs in community situations, there are a particular set of circumstances, and this helps to set quality standards in those community hubs. So looking forward, following the end of the grant funding from the Scottish Government, we were successful in a number of Smarter Choices, Smarter Places projects, which we are working on at the moment. These include pop-up mobility hubs, some research which includes the Scottish bike share and car club research, which we've done before, piloting some DDRT user surveys and interviews, and also a review of e-scooter policy and practice in the Scottish context, which currently doesn't have shared e-scooter test trials. And we're also working with the Foundation for Integrated Transport and research on the impacts of shared transport. And Martin mentioned consultancy is becoming an increasingly important role for CoMoUK, supporting local authorities. Okay, now we move on to questions and discussions, and more than happy to take any questions from the floor. And Richard, Chief Exec, is joining from the sidelines as well. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question.